Welcome to Rainy Day Rabbit Holes,
a uniquely Pacific Northwest podcast.
I'm Shea.
And I'm Jody.
And on each episode, we take you on a journey through the weird, wacky, and wonderful stories of Pacific Northwest history.
So strap on your Tevas, put on your North Face, and pour yourself a glass of Rattlesnake Ridge Merlot.
Ooh.
And let's fall down the rabbit hole.
Stop the podcast. Real quick, I want to let you know about a little giveaway we're doing sponsored by the Men in Black Birthday Bash. You can win a pair of tickets to one of their 3 events celebrating the inception of the Men in Black phenomenon. It takes place on the weekend of June 21st, 2024 in Des Moines, Washington, with events on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. And hey, you can even meet us. Go to our website at rainydayrabbitholes.com to enter to win and for more details. Now on with the show. All right, let's do this.
All right, Shea. We're going to visit a state we haven't visited yet in the Pacific Northwest.
California.
No, we did San Francisco.
Oh, that's true.
All right. Okay, Shea, today we're going to go to Montana State Prison. And unfortunately, we're not leaving the era we have been in recently over and over again. But when you're looking at rabbit holes in the Pacific Northwest, that time of the Wild Wild West in the 1800s and right into the early 19s, here we are again. So here we go. Montana State Prison has a storied history that spans over a century. Located in the small town of Deer Lodge, Montana, the prison has been a site of numerous scandals, tales of ghostly encounters, and unmarked graves. In this story, we delve into the rich history of Montana State Prison, or what is known to locals as Deer Lodge, exploring its scandals, burials, and hauntings.
Ooh.
Starting at the beginning, the construction of this original prison began in 1868 when the U.S. government allotted $40,000 to assist in curbing lawlessness of the Montana state or the Montana territory. It was not a state at this time. And the prison was completed in 1871, making it one of the oldest prisons in the Western United States. However, that's kind of a caveat because this prison is no longer in use. As of 1979, there's a different building they use. In 1885, the prison had 28 cells and 120 inmates.
Wait. Give me that math again.
28 cells and 120 inmates.
So like 10 people to a cell, basically.
Yes. And so the prison was completed.
Well, no, wait, hold on. Did I just do the math wrong? 5 people to a cell.
Oh, yeah, 5 people. 5 people to a cell. And these cells
No, math's not my forte.
These cells are like a single room on a train or, I don't know, like a single
like 10 by
dorm
12
room.
or something?
Yeah, they're tiny.
Jeez.
Yeah, so.
Oh, God, can you imagine the smell?
Oh, yes.
I mean,
In
it was
fact,
the 18...
It's clearly documented there was a smell.
Okay, great.
Mm-hmm. So, and the prison was finished in 1871. And by 1885, this is the state they're in, 28 cells, 120 inmates.
Ew.
And how fun for them.
Oh, the farts.
Right? And just being crowded. Like, you're not in there with the most jovial, fun, happy people you really want to that will make you a better person or make you have a good day.
Well, and also think about like the bathing of the era was not frequent.
Well, they're not even allowed.
Oh, God. And then the plumbing is probably fairly primitive. Do you know if they had a toilet in their cell or did they?
I don't know if they did in the beginning.
Okay.
They do by the time they close the prison.
Well, sure. But
I don't
there were standards.
They didn't have plumbing in
middle of the century.
1868, or 1871 when it opened. So they did not originally have it, but by the time it closes in 1879 or 1979, they do.
When was like flush toilets a thing? I don't know.
We'll have to look that up.
Well, here's what I'm thinking. They had a latrine that was like a wooden building with a flat board on it that had a bunch of holes in it with maybe they just dug underneath.
Yeah.
And then the men would just sit cheek to cheek.
Yeah, I'd imagine.
Take their dumps.
Yeah. Ugh.
And then and there's probably like a bucket of lime that you just brush into the hole when you're done. And there's probably flies everywhere.
Yeah. Yeah.
But you know what? That probably helped make the cell smell a little bit better that there wasn't a toilet in it.
Right. Sitting there holding
just
it.
Man farts and unwashed bodies. Oh, gross. Okay, go back to where you were. 128 prisoners.
No,
or 120 prisoners in 28 cells.
Yes. And that was 1885. This thing opened in 1871. And so what is that? 14 years later, they are that overcrowded. So poor planning.
Grief. Yeah,
or is it just
over incarceration?
Is it the population's growing during that time? So they're heading over in their wagon trains.
Sure.
So probably both. Well, and they didn't keep people very long, as we'll find.
Okay.
So anyway, U.S. Congress sent $15,000 to build additional cells because of the overcrowding. But unfortunately, the original building was done very frugally. The foundation was on soggy bricks and there was wood exterior, and it would not support an addition.
Soggy Bricks would make a great band name.
Oh, that would be.
Soggy Bricks.
Soggy.
I don't even know what a soggy brick is, but.
So they used the $15,000 to build administrative buildings and a guard tower instead.
Oh.
And part of the reason they'd use such cheap supplies to build this, it wasn't just to be frugal. It was because they didn't really have access to supplies, and they had to be all shipped in for the most part, and they just couldn't get access to them. They wouldn't. And then what they could even get was very expensive because they had to ship it. So Montana became a state in 1889, and Congress sent another $25,000, and a 3-tier building was erected. I put that in there multiple times just for you.
Thank you.
My story
I love to
is
talk
riddled with erections.
About architectural erections. Wait, just say that one more time so I have it clean.
Yes, Shea, I did that just for you. My story's riddled with erections.
I can't wait to put that in.
Okay, so let's back up to Congress sent another $25,000 and a 3-tier building was erected with 42 double occupancy cells. So even that's 84 more people that could be in there. Still, you're short a few.
Yeah.
And by this time in 1895, you're still 6 years later. I'm sure it's even more overcrowded.
Right.
I'm sure they just caught up with being that overcrowded as they were before. Much of the prison construction was performed by the convicts. So think about this. They built the prison where they would serve out their sentence. And it kind of reminded me of stories of having to go pick your own switch when you get a
or dig your own grave.
That's where I was going next because that's where they went next. This place was not somewhere you wanted to be incarcerated.
Oh boy.
So yes, or it would be more like digging their own grave. You can see I have it written right here.
Do you want me to?
You just no. You keep it. You just read my mind. Shea ruins everything. I'm going to start out with a story about the most notable event that happened at the original prison, an event that captivated the nation and consumed almost the entire daily Interlake newspaper published out of Kalispell, Montana. Multiple headlines on the front page about this event. April 16, 1959, the sun was setting behind the rugged hills of Deer Lodge, Montana, casting long shadows over the Montana State Prison. Inside, the atmosphere was charged, a powder keg waiting to explode. For weeks, tension had been simmering among the inmates, fueled by overcrowding, harsh conditions, and the oppressive summer heat.
Our pod friend of the week is the Grit City Podcast. Hosts Justin, Scott, Derek, and Jeff dive into the heart and soul of Tacoma with engaging stories, in-depth interviews, and a genuine celebration of the grit and spirit that make Tacoma unique. Jody and I recently had the incredible opportunity to be guests on the show, where we talked about the history of the Union Club in Tacoma and the inception of our own little podcast. It was an unforgettable experience. Take a listen to this little clip from our appearance on the Grit City Podcast.
Here's what you missed on the Grit City Podcast.
A wife's duty is to always make sure.
We just lit Shea on fire about a wife's duty because she's about to tell you what it is.
It is always to make sure that the husband is wrong.
Oh, thank you. You brought me back around.
Yeah, I got you in the first half, but it's the fact that I've never disagreed with anyone more in a loving way than my wife after we got married. Like, she marries the person that she will be happy to disagree with for the rest of her life.
Oh, that is. Can you make a card?
I love that actually.
That's a perfect anniversary card.
Yes, and it's absolutely true.
Catch up on episodes by subscribing wherever you listen to podcasts and at gritcitypodcast.com.
I'll link to their show in the show notes. but you can search for the Grit City podcast everywhere.
And this is where the story kind of depends on your source. I'm going with the source of the newspaper of the original time, which I thought would be closer to, less of a telephone game where the story is retold differently over time.
Sure.
Original source. However, newspapers of this time they
didn't have the journalistic standards of today.
Correct. So did they make it up to make it sound better? I don't know. So
yeah,
here we go. I'm going to use their source, which was the Daily Interlake newspaper. A spark finally ignited the fuse. It began in the mess hall during dinner. A fight broke out between two inmates over a piece of bread, a seemingly trivial dispute that quickly escalated into chaos. The guards, quickly outnumbered and completely unprepared, struggled to regain control as more prisoners joined the fray, their pent-up frustrations boiling over. Amid the turmoil, two inmates, Jerry Miles and Lee Smart, seized the opportunity to take charge. Miles, a seasoned convict with a reputation for cunning, saw this as a chance to orchestrate the rebellion. Jerry Miles, by the way, had been at Alcatraz in Leavenworth. So he's an experienced
he's a pro
convict.
at being convict.
That's how, when they say seasoned convict. He was there at Alcatraz during that riot, but he did not participate in it. I don't know if he was not in the area because he sounds like he probably would have wanted to, but he didn't.
Crazy.
Right. So, and Lee Smart, his loyal and volatile accomplice, was more than eager to follow. Together, they rallied the inmates, urging them to overthrow the guards and take control of the prison. As the riot spread, the inmates armed themselves with anything they could find, with improvised weapons, kitchen knives, and even pieces of furniture. They overpowered the guards, locking them in cells and taking several hostages. Panic gripped the prison administration as they realized the full extent of the uprising. Within hours, the situation had spiraled out of control. Fires were set, and the acrid smell of smoke filled the air. The rioters smashed windows, tore down doors, and vandalized offices. Yeah, they got control. They got control. And imagine being so oppressed for so long in such nasty conditions, and you're just kind of probably a violent person.
And wait, what year was this again?
1956.
Okay. Yeah, I was sorry. I was just trying to, as you're telling me this story, I'm doing a visual in my head, so I just need to put everybody in the appropriate costumes.
By 1956, by the way, they do have plumbing. At the original time, they did not have plumbing. But in 1956, during this riot, they do have plumbing.
Okay. That's good to know. At least they can crap in their own cell while they're
I don't know that it works great. The sound of breaking glass and shouted orders echoed through the cell blocks as they took 18 hostages, prison guards, and other prison personnel. Miles and Smart, operating from the central control room for the next 36 hours, started working on the demands they would use to negotiate the end of the riot. Their demands included improved conditions. The prison was notorious for having terrible living conditions. It was overcrowded. The inmates faced inadequate food, poor sanitation, and limited recreational activities. The place reeked of human waste.
Oh, God.
And double occupancy cells housed 3 to 4 inmates.
Ew.
This is 1956, so this hadn't changed since
1890s. Yeah. Jeez.
They had inmate grievances that they wanted answers. There were widespread grievances among inmates about the mistreatment and lack of proper medical care and rehab programs. And these were ongoing complaints which were never addressed. You had an avenue to place a complaint, but it just went nowhere, or maybe into the round file.
I was about to say the round filing cabinet.
That's where it went. It just never went anywhere. So the frustration building, right? Especially when you're given the expectation that something would happen. You have this avenue for complaint or to address these things. So you're in hopes that somebody will actually at least answer you, instead of the place where you're at with no hope because you're at prison and nobody gives a crap. Maybe that would have been a little better, or at least that pent up anger,
at least
frustration.
To think that somebody out there cared,
right?
Even the
and then
tiniest bit, and then then the frustration and anger builds, and the them versus us just comes into more play, and you're not helping anybody by that. You're not rehabilitating anybody with that attitude of neglect and abuse. That doesn't help anybody. If you're going to let these people out of prison, you have to give them something when they're in prison, so that when they leave, they can
keep them
go
forever.
or just keep them forever. Like, if you're going to treat them like shit, you have to keep them forever. Otherwise, you're just making them a better criminal when they leave because they're just going to spend their entire time thinking about how they're going to now really not play the game.
And they're learning from experts.
Right.
They're networking.
How about giving them like business courses so they could go out and like be a productive human being and make a living wage as opposed to all they can get now is like fast food jobs. I don't know.
Can they with a felon? I don't know.
Right. Anyway, we're not going to get into the politics of incarceration.
Right. The third thing they were negotiating was removal of certain guards from duty.
Oh, I'm sure these were abusive people, huh?
Yeah. The immediate trigger for the riot was the assault of an inmate by a prison guard, which ignited the already simmering tensions. So right before the bread incident, everybody's really heightened because there was an assault of an inmate by a prison guard. Everybody's already ready, wanting to fight. They're angry. And then there's a fight over bread and then unleashing of all their aggression. Outside the prison walls, the local authorities scrambled to respond. Unfortunately, early into the riot, or before it was probably even called a riot, Deputy Warden Ted Roth wandered into the area, and unfortunately, he was shot and killed by Miles and
Smart.
So
they had gotten the guns away from the guards?
Yes,
Yeah,
the
okay.
prisons. But he just wandered in, didn't know what was happening.
He didn't know there was a riot? He was just like, I'm here for my shift
Yep.
or whatever.
Yeah, I think he went through a door. Maybe he was going to inspect, I hear something or something, but he apparently walked in kind of nonchalantly at a point when...
Oh, poor guy.
Bad timing.
Man.
The National Guard was eventually called, and by nightfall, the prison was surrounded by heavily armed troops. Spotlights pierced the darkness, illuminating the grim fortress. And you should see pictures of this. We'll put it up. It looks like a castle from England or something, way back, Scotland. And it is right on Main Street. It's still there today. And we'll talk about it a little bit later.
Like in the middle of the town?
Yeah. And it's huge.
It's a weird place for
and
a
the
prison.
wall, you'd expect to see a moat, but there's not.
Florence, Arizona.
Negotiations were slow and made little progress. Miles and Smart were adamant in their demands, and any sign of weakness from the authorities could lead to further violence. So they weren't really negotiating. They were demanding.
Yeah.
So negotiations probably aren't the term. They had already killed the deputy Ted Roth when he entered the area, so they knew that they would likely kill others had they escalated this. As the night wore on, tensions remained high. Inside, the hostages feared for their lives, while the rioters, buoyed by their temporary success, grew increasingly bold. But the authorities were determined to regain control, and at dawn on April 17th, they launched a coordinated assault. The National Guard launched 3 bazookas.
I just love the word bazooka, but
I know.
that seems extreme.
No, 3 of them, right?
3 bazookas. Because here's the thing, you remember the bazooka bubblegum?
Yes.
So I see bazooka, I see a big gun that's just shooting
Same.
bubblegum at people.
Well, no, I see pink little missiles.
They're made out of bubblegum. They just like smashed bazooka. Well, first off, you know what you have to do with bazooka bubblegum is chew it until your jaw is sore to get it soft enough to do anything with it. Because remember, it was hard as a rock.
But then it gets hard again.
So you have like 50 people chewing bazooka bubblegum, and then they all spit it out, and they quickly form it into a missile, and then it hardens up, and that's what I'm imagining. I'm such an asshole.
Because we know weapons.
Yes, we are weapons experts over here.
So this is why Shea and I laugh, because the National Guard launched 3 bazookas into Deer Lodge, Montana prison. I mean, Montana State prison.
Wads of bubblegum.
Yes.
Which you just can't get out of your hair. You have to cut
Oh
your
my
hair off,
gosh.
unless they have a lot of peanut butter. I don't remember much about my childhood, honestly. Like, my brain is old. So, you have those memories, though, that are really vivid, right? Of when you were little, like, before you were 10 years old.
Yeah.
They're bits and pieces of memories.
Right.
Maybe they're true, maybe they're not. But I do remember we had a huge white Suburban that was called the Urban Assault Vehicle.
By who?
My brother.
Okay.
When he was a teenager. I just remember being in the back seat, and I had gum, and I took it out of my mouth, and I don't remember how it happened, but it got all over my hair.
Oh no, and the window was probably down, blowing it around.
Well, and I'm in the back seat, my mom's driving, and my mom recalls it. She says, "I heard you say, Mommy, can I have a tissue?
Oh, no.
And so she's driving, so she just grabs a tissue and, like, without looking, hands it over between the seats, to the back seat. And then she hears, Mommy, can I have another tissue?
In trouble.
She hands it back there. And when she finally gets to where she's going, she looks back and hears me with every single finger has strands of tissue hanging off of it, and I have tissue hanging out of my ear because the gum is all over my hands, it's all over my hair, and I tried to wipe it with tissues, and that just sticks.
Oh, no.
And there's just streamers.
Oh, gosh. How much hair did you lose?
We did peanut butter.
Oh, it worked.
Yeah, and I had curly, like, rat's nest hair, but I have very fine hair, so you can, like, slide it out. Yeah.
Okay.
But I do remember, like, looking down at my hands. And maybe the memory was just planted by my mother telling me the story. Who knows? Yeah. But I do, like, I have this memory of looking down at my hands and seeing, like, the shreds.
I'm picturing
tissues.
It right now. I know exactly what you're talking about. Was it pink?
I'm sure. That's the only gum in the 80s.
Yeah.
Or
with juicy fruit.
Oh, God.
That was so tasty for 5 seconds.
And then it was just chewing a rubber band.
Yes. I kind of want some now.
Chewing gum gives me burps.
Huh.
I swallow too much air, I think, when I chew gum.
You're an aggressive gum chewer. Take it easy.
I can't just, like, casually chew gum. I gotta
simmer, settle.
You know me. I can't do that.
All in or all out.
Chew that gum.
This is exactly why Shea and I get along so well. She's just like my husband. I'm like, there is a middle.
Is there?
No. Yeah, I go alone. It's there.
Okay,
I digress. No, you digress. We digress.
Okay, they fired 3 bazookas.
Bazookas. Okay, so the National Guard launched 3 bazookas and tear gas canisters.
They launched tear gas Canadians. Actually, would that work if you just launched Canadians in to, like, negotiate? They're like, look, can we just all get along? We've got socialized medicine. It's nice up here.
Yeah.
Half of us speak French.
Wow. You had a whole commercial for Canada, like, in your head.
It also just shows my ignorance of Canada. They're right there, but I don't really know much about them beyond that.
Okay.
Sorry. I think the champagne's kicked in.
Look at I have a whole glass still.
Oh, I don't.
Oh, God.
Okay. Here we go.
All right. The National Guard launched 3 bazookas and tear gas canisters before they stormed the gates. The final hours of the riot were chaotic and brutal. Miles and Smart, realizing their hold was slipping, tried to negotiate a last-minute escape, but found themselves cornered. In the ensuing clash, both were killed, and the remaining rioters quickly surrendered. Amazingly, over this entire riot, only 3 people were killed.
Oh, wow.
Miles and Smart, along with Deputy Warden Todd Rath.
Oh, they killed those 2 guys.
Yep.
Well, they kind of deserved it.
Yes,
Sorry.
They kind of did. There's competing reports. Was it a murder-suicide or were they killed by the National Guard? So I'm not clear on that. But they were 2 of the 3 people who did not make it out alive. With the goal of preventing further uprisings, the current warden, Powell, stated he would be tightening the rules.
Oh, great.
And increasing punishments.
Oh, making it even better in there.
To maintain order. The first move was to parade the bodies of Miles and Smart in front of all the prisoners as an example of what happens when you start a riot.
Wait, was this the 1550s or the 1950s?
Right? Nope. It was
Holy
1959.
crap.
Yeah. So their dead bodies were paraded down the hallways for everyone to see.
That's disgusting.
Next, the prisoners were no longer allowed to have any personal belongings. So to ensure that this happened, they were stripped naked, taken to the yard, and cavity searched. It had to be thorough.
I don't know if they know this, but this isn't going to work.
No, it does not. Their cells were searched, stripped, and all belongings taken away. So they were put back in their cells, which were still overcrowded, but now all their amenities were taken away, and there were even more restrictive punishments. The horrid conditions of the prison, along with the punishments carried out, have led to numerous reports of experiencing hauntings over the year. But we'll get to that in a moment. First, we take a break.
The fact that you are listening to this podcast tells me that you are a podcast lover. But you know what sucks about podcasts? They're hard to work out too. If you're like me and you need a beat, then we have found your solution.
You need to get yourself the Podbeat app. This free mobile app lets you easily add a beat to any podcast or audiobook for a run, a hike, or a workout.
It's easy and kind of genius. You open the app, select your desired beat. They've got everything from pop to rock to EDM and more. Select the BPM or beats per minute that you want, adjust the volume, and then hit the lock button. Then you open up your podcast and hit play.
Here's an example. Here's me talking without a beat. I know you love the sound of my voice, but you can't really run to it. And here's me talking using the Podbeat app to add beat under my voice. Pretty cool, huh?
Now you have no excuse to not listen to our podcast. You can listen while you do anything.
Head on over to the Apple App Store or Google Play to get the Podbeat app now.
We will also link it in the show notes and on our social media. Back to the show.
Back from the break and back down the rabbit hole. Montana State Prison is home to the Galloping Gallows.
Galloping gallows.
Yes.
It's where they just hook you up to a horse and on a rope and then slap the horse on the ass and it takes off.
Not quite. I think they've advanced their ways and they've elevated themselves to doing this. They were known for their use of the gallows and hanging prisoners quickly and in high numbers. So to make it easier, because to get to where the prisoner was, I guess, was easier than bringing the prisoner to the gallows. So they made a mobile traveling gallows. So that's why it's Galloping Gallows. So
Let's start a side hustle.
Right.
Mobile gallows.
Mobile gallows.
Executions are
Yes. Yes. So they would just roll it or carry it, I don't know, from one area to the next.
Oh, God, that's dark.
Yes.
So dark.
Actually, now I want to just kind of step back and
Okay.
because us laughing about this as I just engaged with you and told you the story, I missed out on an opportunity. So I'm going to read it to you as I wrote it.
Okay, let's do it.
They were known for their use of the gallows and hanging prisoners. And to make it easier, they erected a traveling
Thank you.
gallows
Thank you.
to around the prison to wherever they wanted or needed to perform them. There.
Thank you
I feel
for thinking of
better.
me.
Stick to the script, Jody.
Yeah, I mean, you can't miss all those erections.
Right. I could miss them if I don't stick to the script.
Nothing's worse than a misdirection. That'd be a wasted erection. That's
Yes,
a crime.
no, I almost just blew right by it. Oh, God.
Then it wouldn't have been a misdirection.
There is not a known count of prisoners who were actually executed using the gallows, but it's thought to be in the hundreds. There is a graveyard behind the old prison with 200 graves, most of them unmarked. So this leads to the paranormal experiences, or what people think leads to the paranormal experiences is all this sorrow and rage and horror that's happened in behind these prison walls forever.
Yeah, those are that's the recipe for making a ghost, right?
Right? So here we are. In fact, Ghost Hunts USA had a tour or an experience they would give you. However, I went to look this up. During my research, I was looking up the hauntings. And so I found this company. And so I went to their website to see how much it would cost or how you book. And the website's down. So I'm thinking that this company no longer is in existence. But Ghost Hunts USA would host a night in the prison.
Ooh.
You would go in at 8 p.m. and stay till 5 a.m.
Ooh.
And it's not like a hotel. There's no accommodations. You are in this old, cold brick and old rotty wood, steel bars, peeling paint.
I don't want to do it.
And then the mattresses are like bare with stains on
Ew,
them.
I would bring camping gear.
Yeah, there's no sheets.
Gross.
It is. Ugh. I was thinking about this, Shay. We could go because I was thinking, I mean, how do you don't sleep, I guess. I don't know. We could sleep and Keith could go with us because he works nights.
Well, we would just have to train ourselves to stay up all night long.
I feel like I would be staying up all night long if I was in this place.
Well, I don't sleep well when I'm
awful.
uncomfortable and in an uncomfortable situation for sleeping, so I probably would stay up all night long. Anyways, we would just
I
do
can't
it.
think of anything more uncomfortable.
We just bring a big old thermos of coffee.
Yep.
Hopefully there's somewhere for me to pee.
Ugh. So the old stain mattresses looked disgusting.
Yeah.
They
Not laying on that. Gross.
They looked, I couldn't tell if it was like, there was multiple different types of staining.
Ew.
There was drawings on the walls. One of them was the devil. Or at least it was labeled the devil.
I'm sure there's also lots of dicks.
Yeah, I bet. They did not show that on the YouTube
Probably
video
not.
I was watching. Any of them.
But we know they're there and we will find them.
Yeah,
as
mean,
Chris from Pretty Green
right, I was
Tourist
gonna say.
knows. That's all we want to know is where are the drawings of dicks.
They're definitely all over the Stadium High School attic.
I know. I think he was getting a little irritated at the end. It's like, here's another dick.
Visit that episode. Don't forget to go back and listen to our tour of the Stadium High School where you will find Dicks in the Attic.
Dicks in the Attic. That's a great band name. Dicks in the Attic.
Multiple times today. Great band name.
Chris, if you're going to start a band, you can have that band name, Dicks in the Attic. It's for you. It's our gift to you. Thank you, Chris. We're such dorks. He's not going to want to be associated with us anymore.
He's like, stop shouting out
Stop
my
talking.
company. Do not
Keep my company's name out of your mouth.
pretend you don't know me. Okay? Okay, so Ghost Hunts USA reports from their guests. I have a few examples of what they've reported. The Phantom Guard. Many visitors and staff have reported seeing a spectral guard making his rounds, especially in the oldest parts of the prisons. By the way, this is the old prison where you go do this overnight, which is no longer functioning in any way.
But there's still ruins there? Like,
Yeah, the building's still there and all the junk. And there is no prisoners in there. But I know, it's creepy. The ghost is often described as wearing a uniform from the 20th century, complete with a long coat and hat. Witnesses say he silently walks through the corridors before disappearing into thin air. So that's the Phantom Guard. And these are listed as multiple people have experienced seeing these same things. So those are the ones that I chose to highlight. The spirit of the inmate in the hole. So the hole, solitary confinement. The hole, solitary confinement hole cell is one of the most notoriously haunted spots in the prison. Many visitors report feeling an overwhelming sense of dread and despair upon entering this small, dark cell.
Yikes.
Some have heard moans, whispers, and even screams. The popular story involves the spirit of an inmate who was reportedly driven insane by his time in the hole, and his tormented spirit is still there lingering. Ooh. Can you imagine? Like, this is the worst thing ever. Like, you're suffering. This is like hell. This is hell. And now I've died, and now I'm still there.
I'm going to give real quick my take on ghosts.
Okay.
I believe that our energy could possibly leave a stain or an echo. And the stronger the emotion. Sure. And so maybe it's more of an echo of the emotions of somebody that was there versus their actual spirit or soul trapped there for all eternity. I feel like it's more like an energy, because we all have energy, right?
Right.
And what does that energy do when we die? Like, who knows?
Right. So where does it go?
Where does it go? So that's
I think
more
crystals.
crystals. Just put them up your butt.
I know how Shay feels about crystals. So that
No, you are a medical professional. We are not going to talk about crystals. Okay. Anyway, that's
I only do it for you.
Thank you. Anyways, that's my thought about that. Is it's not somebody's trapped there for all eternity, like just bounce, like
right.
Like if you put a bumblebee in a jar and it's bouncing on the walls, and that's a
not
ghost. Like, I don't think that. I think it's more of like an
tracers.
echo, or maybe we don't know everything about time and how time works.
Yeah, it's so funny. The
dimensions.
second I start trying to think that out,
your brain hurts.
It hurts.
Yeah,
it hurts right now just because you talked about it.
Well, like maybe that's actually just echoes from another timeline.
Right. Well, that would mean they're not suffering and stuck. That would be nice.
It's actually just their experience happening at the time that you're there. It's just in a different timeline or a different dimension, or I don't know. It's woo.
Well, let me talk about one. I didn't include it here, but I did watch a video.
Ooh. Gimme.
Of someone on the tour. He had a flashlight, like a little handheld one where you push with your thumb or something, the little button on, off, right? And he laid it down and he was talking to the camera about where he was in the place. He was down by the gallows. Actually, he had set his flashlight on the steps of the gallows, which we're going to talk about in a minute. They're still there. He sets the flashlight on the steps of the gallows. And while he's talking, it just wants to turn on and turn off. So he starts talking to the ghost and he says, if you're a ghost, turn on the light. So the light comes on and then, this is a recording, so it could be all manipulated. Yes. I'm just telling you how the timeline. And then he says, were you a prisoner here? And then say yes. And the light came on. And were you executed here? Nothing happened. If you were not executed here, then the light came on and blah, blah, blah. So would that would be different though. That wouldn't be just tracer energy, like something that was here in the past,
know
right?
How to explain that other than just malfunction of the light. Right. I mean, that sort of thing.
Perfectly timed.
I mean, kind of like EVP. That's where you hear like voices in the recording or something like that. That's so much psychology.
Right.
That's our brain wants to find patterns, right? It's like when you see a face in the clouds. Right. Or pattern in the clouds because our brains are uncomfortable when they cannot find patterns.
Right.
So we find patterns wherever we can. And the moment somebody suggests to you that there's a voice in a recording, you're going to hear a voice.
Well, yes. And that does happen during this thing. Okay. When he's done, he says something about like, are you done? And then there's a noise. And he goes, did you hear that? It said, yup. And so now, obviously it sounds like yup. And so, yes, exactly that happened in that video.
Yeah, our brains want to make sense out of things and make patterns, and that's what happens.
Yep, exactly.
I mean, that's my belief based upon what science has told us, and I like to go with science.
Science. What was that song?
She blinded me with science.
Oh, yes. I knew I could count on you. Oh, we digress. The third paranormal story pertains to the story I just told about the riot. The major riot that broke out in 1959, resulting in 3 deaths. Many believe those spirits of those 3 are still haunting the prison. Visitors report hearing the sounds of gunshots, shouting, and clanging of metal bars as the chaos of the riot is beginning to replay over and over. These stories don't particularly talk about the prisoners who were named in the riot, but they do hear riot noises. So not necessarily interacting with anyone in the riot, but they'll hear the metal bars and the chaos and the noise played over and over.
See, heightened states of emotion and
right.
energy could believe I'm more likely to believe that, which is still kind of supernatural. So I guess I do believe a little bit in supernatural.
Or is it, what do we call that? Physics? Probably not physics.
Is it some sort of physics we just don't understand?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Because energy is science.
Yes.
Shadowy figures are often seen darting through the prison's halls and cells. These dark human-like shapes are usually spotted out of a corner of the eye, vanishing when one tries to look better. Some believe these shadows are the restless spirits of former inmates. The executioner. The prisoner had a history of several executions, obviously hundreds, and the spirit of the prison's executioner is said to haunt the gallows that were erected there.
Like maybe he had some regrets.
Maybe he was thriving in it. Maybe it's his favorite place.
Maybe he had a boner every time he did an execution.
I mean, it was where the gallows were erected. These ghosts, this ghost is often described as a tall, imposing figure wearing a hood reminiscent of a traditional executioner's attire. Cold spots and feelings of being watched are commonly reported in this area. On that video, what I was just speaking about with the flashlight, he enters an area where he finds these pockets of being all of a sudden very cold. And he carries with him, because this is common during ghost hunting, a little thermometer. And you can see it drop 5, then 10 degrees. And then he starts talking to the ghost and he's saying, hey, can you make it go down to 30? Can you make it go down to 30? And then it does. He got it all the way down to 28 degrees by asking the ghost to do that, from 54 degrees to 28 degrees.
Well, that's interesting.
On his thermometer.
Can it be replicated?
Well, and again, it's on video. Like he's recording this. He's one guy in the whole place.
Sure.
Disembodied voices. One of the most frequently reported paranormal phenomena in Deer Lodge Prison is the sound of disembodied voices. Visitors and staff have heard conversations, cries for help, and even threats from unseen entities. These voices are often heard in areas where violent incidents occurred. These stories come from that ghost tour, right? Where you're in there all night. But you also are in this prison with, 30, 40 other people. So
old stone walls or
noises would be
walls.
hard to blame on anything but maybe another guest down the hall.
And if you're maybe awake all night long, there's also a little bit of like sleep deprivation.
Right.
Can't always trust your senses.
Yes.
When you're tired.
So this prison is still erect. And right on Main Street, like I said, looks like a castle. They do have museum tours. You don't have to go on a ghost tour. They have a museum in the old building. And you can go there to see all the artifacts, old stories about famous prisoners or known prisoners. To tour the museum is $18 for adults. Children 7 to 15 is $10. This is interesting because what is it from 15 to 18? Because adults are you free from 15 to 18? And then children 6 and under are free.
But maybe you shouldn't bring your 6-year-old on a tour.
Prison. Oh, well, let's back up because the tour is not just the prison. I'll give you the full museum name. It is Old Montana Prison and Auto Museum.
Oh, okay. So what a weird combination.
Right. So you've got cars on the left and prison on the right.
Oh, good grief. That's weird.
Yeah. So, and they're 7 days a week, 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. End of my story. We digressed. But I feel like when we digress, it is some of the best content.
You know, what we need to do is we need to get together with the gals from P&W Haunts and Homicides.
Oh, yeah.
And go make a road trip.
Oh,
and see if we can do that ghost tour with them.
Oh, an overnight? Yes. Yeah. An overnight collab.
Oh my gosh. That would be amazing. That'd be so much fun.
Oh, yeah.
Hit me up, Caitlin.
Yeah. That's great.
Text me at 10:30. It's fine. Well, thank you so much, everyone. That was a great story. That was super fun. I'd never heard of Deer Lodge before. That's cool. Thank you so much.
Yes.
Thank you to our listeners. We really appreciate your support. And you can further support us by sharing this with somebody. That's all we ask. If you don't want to leave a review, it's fine. That doesn't actually do anything other than just fluff our ego. It's fine. Those are just fluffers.
While you're sitting at work, talk about it.
Tell somebody about it. Text it. Even better. Text the link to somebody that you love and you know is going to love our show. And that is so great. We are going to be guests on the Grit City podcast coming up here on, well, by the time this comes out, it will have already happened. So you can actually go to the Grit City podcast feed and hear our dulcet tones on that show. And then you will also hear us later in June, or at least me, on the Tyrant in Training podcast. So that is
she is.
It's a comedy podcast where the host, Kevin, talks to funny people, which I think I am. I don't know if anybody else does, about how they would make a great tyrant. And as you've heard here, I apparently would make a great cult leader, which is a tyrant of sorts. It's just a very tiny tyrant.
I mean, since I met her, it's been her goal.
Tiny tyrant. That's me. So we have a lot of fun things that are going to be happening. So make sure you follow us on Facebook and Instagram, Threads. And you can also go to our website. You can always get that 10% off code at our website for Pretty Gritty Tours. We love Pretty Gritty Tours. We want everybody to go take one of their tours. They're fantastic. And we will see you next time on the Rainy Day Rabbit Holes podcast.
See you down the rabbit hole.
I'm Shea. I have squishy bits.
And I want to talk to you about your squishy bits.
Right?